Ed, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Tell me, who is Ed Jackson?
Oh, that's a good question. And it's changed quite a lot over the years, I think, as we'll probably get into. But Ed these days, I suppose, is someone who, I always think to answer this, like, how would your friends describe you? Or how would your family describe you? I think I'm good fun. My mum might describe me as a bit too adventurous, but my friends would describe me as adventurous. I'm a husband. My wife's a very important part of my life. I suppose that's it. If you got into the things I do, then we could be here all day. But
Well, let's do that because there's a number of different things that you've achieved, that you've done, but there's a significant moment, a kind of life before, life after, an accident, which you can talk me through.
yeah. So my life before, to give it context, I was a professional rugby player for 10 years. That was everything I knew. That was my whole identity. It was great. I was the young lad who got to do PE for a living, basically. Go and run around in the field with his mates. But then at the age of 28, that all came to a bit of a sudden conclusion when I was at a family friend's house and I was recovering from a shoulder injury. After lunch, I went down to the swimming pool. They had a feature pool with a waterfall in one end. Took my t-shirt off, dived in where the waterfall hit the water, thinking it was 8 to 10 feet deep. Turned out to only be 3 feet deep. So I hit my head so hard on the bottom of the pool that it dislocated the bottom of my neck. And if anyone knows, any doctors out there, C6, C7 vertebrae dislocated, the disc in between exploded, and it rendered me completely paralyzed from the shoulders down instantly. Which, of course, is pretty terrifying when you're in a pool, when you're underwater. Terrifying anyway. And at first,
You're fully conscious at this point.
Fully conscious. I was dazed because I'd hit my head so hard, but I didn't lose consciousness. And at first, I was like just confused as to why I couldn't move. But then, that confusion quickly turned to panic because I thought I'm going to drown. Fortunately, my dad and another friend were there. They pulled me to the surface of the pool. But ambulance came 45 minutes later, went into hospital. Actually transpired that ambulance journey, I had to be resuscitated 3 times. So very lucky to be here at all, to be honest, never mind doing what I'm doing today. And then I woke up after a 7-hour operation and nothing had changed. I was completely paralyzed from the shoulders down. And a week passed of a lot of soul searching and a lot of, fear and anxiety of like, what does this mean for the rest of my life? What have I done to my family and my friends and all of these sorts of things? And was I ever going to be able to walk again? And the doctor came in a week after, said, look, we've done all of your test results, the ASIA test, American Spinal Injury Assessment, and your prognosis is you're never going to walk again. We're hoping you can get the use of your arms back so you can use a wheelchair. And yeah, that was it. I was staring down the barrel of life in a wheelchair, which was kind of the exact opposite of what I had been doing for my whole life. My whole identity was being physical and being, able and, being a sportsman. And now I was the complete opposite. And it was interesting though, because in that moment when he told me that, I remember him saying the word, we hope you can get the use of your arms back so you can be independent. And the word independence was the thing that really, obviously it was like getting punched in the stomach and getting winded hearing those words. You never think you would. But actually, I realized at that point it wasn't just about me. It was about anyone that was going to have to care for me for the rest of my life. And my mum was in the room, my wife's in the room, they're both in tears. And I remember thinking, I've got to do everything I can to try and get out of this situation, or at least to try and get my independence back so that it doesn't have to affect them as much as it's affecting me. And it was incredibly motivating, still terrifying. I still didn't think it was actually going to happen because the doctor had told me categorically. I just knew that in 6 months' time or a year's time, if I'm still in this situation and my wife's having to care for me full time, whatever it might be, I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror unless I'd known I'd done everything I could, because then it was out of my hands.
So what can you do? Because at that point you've been told by a professional you're not going to walk again, and you might be able to get some independence if you can get your arms working. You've obviously, I think it's really key to say that competitiveness, that sort of fitness as well, both mentally and physically, that you built up through being a professional sportsman must have been a huge asset to you to get through then what must have been such a difficult time, to have walked in here today having done countless adventures since, but at that moment you were told you would never do that again. So what can you do? What did you do?
Have you ever seen the film Kill Bill?
Yes.
all you can do is stare at your toes and will them to move. And you can still send the messages. In fact, if you close your eyes, because your body still thinks it's moving because it hasn't got time to readjust to the disability. And I'd close my eyes, move my toes, or try and move my toes and open them, nothing would be happening. I'd do this for like an hour.
You had nothing else to do, right? So
Nothing
you can
else.
laser focus on that.
Yeah, and then you pass out asleep after an hour because you're like so exhausted from, even though you're not even moving, just the level of energy and attention that you're putting into it far, outweighed anything I'd done in professional sport before that, which is crazy to think, you're just neurologically exhausting yourself. And it was only 36 hours later that one of those times I tried to move my toes and open it, my toe was wiggling.
Did you believe it? Were you
No,
hallucinating?
I closed my eyes again and was like, and then I just remember being like, I shouted for my mum who was in the corridor. I was like, "Mum, come in, I think my toe's moving." Because I was having spasms and stuff. I thought it might be that, but sure enough, it was wiggling. And then, that was just all bets are off then, because it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be back walking again. The odds were still very much against me, but it meant there was still a connection past the level of injury. So in my mind, everything the doctor had told me up to that point was complete rubbish, which of course it wasn't. He was just basing it on test results, which he was right to do. But I just clung on to that and just pushed, and bit by bit, my body started to come back to me. After sort of 2 months, I stood in a standing frame. After 4 months, I checked myself out of hospital. I was still using the wheelchair up until about 7 or 8 months, and then using a frame after that. And then after 12 months, I climbed my first mountain, hobbled up it.
My first mountain.
Yeah, my first mountain. And, just to give a bit of context, I'm where I am today, 8 years later. I'm a walking quadriplegic, which is the technical term, incomplete quadriplegic. My whole body's affected, all my limbs. Left side, poor movement, but good sensation. Right side, good movement, poor sensation. Then all the underlying health things that go on with spinal cord injury: bladder, bowel function issues, temperature regulation issues, spasms, all of this stuff that people don't see when you see someone in a wheelchair or whatever, and you think it's just a movement thing I live with day to day. But to be honest, because in that moment when I was told I was never going to walk again, and all I'd set my eyes on was independence, everything after that has been a bonus. And I would have thought that any one of these things, I'm not being able to use my left hand again, or having to wear a bag because a urine drainage bag would ruin my life if you told professional rugby player Ed. But because of the context of the whole situation, how fortunate I know I am to be here at all, it frames it completely differently, and I do feel very lucky.
Yeah, I can tell. And you can see that in your eyes. You look alive. There's a whole spark there. And it's an interesting concept for me, where some of the people I've met that are the most alive have had a near-death experience. It could, or something they've had to battle and overcome. It could have been that they've been diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And they've been told that they're not going to come out of this. And then they've come through, and then you were with those people, and you can feel the energy. You can feel that everything they choose to do, every day they're living, they're maxing it. Is that how you see your life now?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd never go and recommend people dive in the wrong end of the swimming pool or have near-death experiences. But there is there's post-traumatic stress, but there's also post-traumatic growth for a lot of people. They'll go one way or the other. And I know a lot of people who've had near-death experiences and have had that context put on their life. I'm fortunate enough to work on the Paralympics quite a lot, and there's a lot of people there who have had these big life experiences. And you do, if you genuinely have to contemplate your own mortality, which I've done twice, where I genuinely thought my life was over, like full-heartedly thought it was over, and then it's not. You just appreciate your life way more when you come out the other side, whatever it might look like. And it's not something you ever consider before. It gives you that frame of reference and that sense of gratitude that I never had before, to just be able to walk down the stairs or drive a car or get on the tube,
I find that the thing that's interesting to me is there's a purpose. So before you had your accident, you were striving to be the best you could be for your team, for rugby, and other things in your life, because you're competitive, and kind of that was driving you. Then your purpose becomes, can I wiggle my toes to ultimately, can I climb a mountain? And I'll come to that, because there must be so many other things you still want to achieve. But is there a message there that someone listening and watching to this that's really struggling with their own motivation and ultimately discipline in their life? And actually, is it that lack of purpose and finding it? And as you say, no one wants to dive into a swimming pool and do themselves injury. But how do you find your purpose? Because I know you have a lot of people now come to you for inspiration. You started putting stuff out on social media, and people came to you saying, you've inspired me, you've given me hope.
Yeah.
I know that you turn that into, gosh, I have a responsibility now. I
Yeah.
have, I have a message, if you like, that I'm giving out that's helping people. How do people find their purpose when they are not afflicted by an injury?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I thought my purpose was being a rugby player. That's the thing my identity was wrapped up in. But obviously it wasn't. It was just, now I know it's just something I did and something I'm very grateful to have done. But when the slate got wiped clean and I had to lie there and go, right, Ed, who really are you? Like, what are your values? What do you enjoy doing? And I had this, it was a weird gift to get given this clean slate to start again, because by the time we get to our 20s, 30s, 40s, normally society is molded as it was put us in lanes, and we think that that's our purpose, or we're feeling purposeless. We're an accountant because we were good at maths, and then that's just the route we went down, and we're feeling a lack of purpose. But I believe that purpose is built, not found. It's not something you just stumble across one day, and it's not something that other people have got it and you haven't. I think it's in the way that you interact with the world on a daily basis. And to do that, you've got to understand your values, like what is important to you. For me, it's work ethic. It's also being kind to other people. It's having fun. And if I approach life in all the situations with those things in mind, if I'm passionate about something, I'll work hard towards it. I'll try and have fun where I can, and I'll be kind to other people, treat them the way I want to be treated. Then the universe kind of takes care of the rest. And I don't think we need to think too big and think, oh, one day I might find my purpose or I won't. It's like, just start interfacing with the world in line with your own values, and the rest will unfold.
That's powerful. That's very much being present as well, isn't it? That's actually turning it internal. I think so many people are so quick to put the TV on an evening and watch Love Island and disappear into a sort of non-reality, if you like. Actually spending time on yourself, asking yourself questions.
Yeah.
And you had the time to do that. You had no choice, if you like, but you also then turned that into a purpose.
Yeah.
In terms of role models, I sort of use that word responsibility. We were talking off camera before about the need for, particularly in the world of boys and men, that sort of lost identity, almost a crisis there in boys growing up, not feeling needed and feeling that society kind of almost brings them into it. How do you go about sort of trying to almost be that role model back into society?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main things that I try and do is speak about the things that men aren't comfortable to speak about, but
Being vulnerable.
I know they struggle with, being vulnerable. And I was the opposite, because I was a rugby player. We were literally taught to not show any weakness. If you're injured, don't let the opposition know. And now I would work as a trustee of Restart, who look after all the professional rugby players, and the mental health issues involved in the game, are massive because of this still inability to talk about the things you're struggling with. And for some reason, this masculine tie between struggling with something is weakness, but talking about, everyone struggles with stuff, and being able to talk about your vulnerabilities is a strength, not hiding it. But you're right, the bad role models make more noise and they're easier to cling on to. And there's so many amazing role models out there, and they came out of the woodwork for me massively when I was in hospital. I was lucky I had a bit of a shop window, having been a rugby player. And there were some people who had been through accidents before, former Paralympians, but not just that, just amazing human beings who would reach out, and I could tell them what I was really struggling with. And I could tell them the things that I didn't want to tell my family and friends, because I didn't want to upset them, telling them I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to be a burden on people. And they'd be like, look, it's completely normal to think like that. Don't worry, things get better. And I just wanted to pay that forward, and that is what I know, how much it helped me, because I've been on the receiving end. And then that's why I started the charity. It's why I do the mentoring I do. It's because I know how powerful it is. And it's a humbling position to be in, to be able to impact someone's life like that from a point of experience. But it is a responsibility as well, because I'm quite an empathetic bloke. And it's like you speak almost on a daily basis to people or families who are going through very traumatic experiences. So it's a blessing and a curse in equal measure, not in equal measure. It's much more of a blessing than a curse, but it's a responsibility that I take on.
You embrace it.
Embrace it.
I
Yeah,
can tell.
because that's where I get my purpose from.
Yeah.
If your life benefits other people, whether that's, a lot of people find purpose in their kids, right? Because they're turning them into better humans, or the work you do, if it helps other people. I think we're set up as humans to be part of the tribe and to add something to other people around us. So if we can start doing things that are in service to that, and that's why a lot of my friends who work, crazy jobs in the city and earn good money, so they're doing something good for their family. I'm like, focus on the life you're giving to your kids, not the fact you hate your job and your boss. And also, do stuff outside of work, that go and volunteer. You can find a sense of purpose from that. You don't need to like just sack everything off and go and live in the mountains in a cave and meditate.
I love
there's
that.
ways to build
and actually that tribal element,
Yeah.
that you talk about strength in vulnerability. You not wanting to show weakness in a team of very macho, strong rugby players. That element of being thrown out of the tribe is probably where this whole historic behaviour has come from. Where actually, I'd rather not show any sort of weakness and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Another key part of that is always needing a challenge. So it sounds like that you've sort of built an amazing habit, if you like, from having hope, from wiggling the toes, to then be able to come back into whether you can start thinking about what am I going to do next. How important are challenges for you, both to not just get, I'll say the word attention for the charity and so on, but also for your mental health?
Massive. When I first did Snowdon, when it was the highest mountain in Wales a year after my accident, I didn't actually think I'd get to the top, but I just wanted to send a message to other people in hospital that I've been told I was never going to walk again, and now I'm back on my feet. But then that whole journey was just life-changing, because I stood on the top of the mountain 9 hours after setting off, and it was just being outdoors, but also being amongst other people, achieving something that I didn't think I was going to be able to achieve before. Then I got the bug, and that's obviously taken me all over the world to the Himalayas, and it's given me a space to not just raise awareness for spinal cord injury and disability in those environments and try and inspire some other people, but for me to heal myself, like the headspace, the emotional side of my healing that's been affected by that, as well as the physical, is massive. And it's true in life. If you want to grow and improve and have that sense of progress, which is definitely linked to purpose. People who are stagnant, whatever they're doing, will probably feel a lack of purpose. Then it's a good environment to do that, because I'm not very good at it. I'm still quite new to it. I'm getting to do it with some amazing people, some of the best climbers in the world. So every day my improvement curve is so steep, and that's immensely rewarding. And then having the ability to take others with me now who are in similar positions
Builds a community.
to me is amazing. It builds that community.
Yeah. Because in the rugby days, you'd have been training to the next game. You've been training for a tournament, so you had a focus. That was the challenge. But the daily habits and the strength training and all that, which was building you physically and maintaining you physically, was also helping your brain. So there must have been a really crushing time during that sort of rehabilitation period, where knowing you may not be able to ever do that again. I don't know how you got through that. I don't know what got you through that, because you mentioned people came to see you, role models, if you like, that said, and you were sharing these thoughts of, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I want to take you back to that moment where you're coming through a period where you've got your wife, you've got family, you've got people, but how alone did you feel, and how did you pull yourself out of that?
Yeah, I did feel very alone, especially at night. During the day, you get the distractions of your family and friends, and you put a brave face on for them, and actually that's really useful. You kind of embody that. And at night, you're by yourself, and the thought your brain naturally goes down negative routes, and it's terrifying. So I learnt to work on mindfulness, distraction tactics, but also trying to stay as present as possible, because I found I was eating myself up. And this is still a tool I use to this day, thinking about where am I going to be in 5 or 10 years' time, or what could I have done differently to not be in this position now, which are both reasonably pointless things to be doing if you're just lying there staring at the ceiling, because I'm not actually,
and you can't change it.
I'm not impacting the future at all. So I learned from going to I want to walk again, turning to I want to move the third finger on my right hand a little bit more today, and then that would be a win. I'll go right now a second finger, and then so turning those goals into much more short-term goals, and having the long-term dreams as aspirations and not fixed goals, because I find if they're fixed goals, and this is the same with mountains, you're just disappointed when you don't achieve it. But if they're aspirations and you see them as part of the journey, flags in the sand to make sure you keep moving in the right direction and keep those daily habits going and keep improving, you'll end up in way better places than you thought in the first place. And that I learned that all in hospital very early on, when I was sort of just completely crippled by the thoughts of the past and the thoughts of the future, to actually just go, what can I control today, and see where it takes me. And it's taken me places that were never part of the plan. Like, I'm doing loads of stuff that I just never imagined I'd ever be doing.
Are you coming up with these, or are people giving you ideas?
Bit of both. Like, I'm running a marathon soon. There's a 3-legged race with a mate. He's bonkers. That was his idea. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do that. On the mountaineering side, the ideas come from all over the place. But from, writing books to starting the charity to the things that actually are my careers now, all of those just evolved from what I said before about trying to align with my values, saying yes to opportunities that feel right to me, rather than, because I was like, there's no way I can write a book. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm not an author. The imposter syndrome was screaming at me. And like the thought now that I present on live TV would have terrified rugby player Ed. I remember I used to be captain of our team at school, and someone else had to give the team talks in the changing room because I couldn't even speak in a room full of my own peers. So to now think that I'm presenting in front of, the Paralympics, millions of people, is baffling. But
That's
it was
proper
just
growth, though, isn't it?
It's just pushing outside that comfort zone a little bit more, and then you end up somewhere you never thought you would.
Is there any challenge that you've got as almost like your North Star? Is there one thing you really like to do that might actually be potentially not attainable, but you're like, I want to do it?
Different things in different walks of life, but mountaineering wise, I've actually got a big trip in August this year to Kyrgyzstan to try and climb a mountain that's never been climbed before by any human. So it'd be the first time there's been a first ascent of a mountain by someone with a disability, obviously. And that would be fun because then you get to name the mountain if you get to the top. So there might be some sort of social media poll for end up with a Boaty McBoatface situation. But no, that to me is a proper adventure because we are walking into a valley and up a glacier that no humans have walked on before. And so it will be like being a old school explorer in that sense. So that's really exciting. And then professionally, I just want to keep the charity moving in the right direction. Like, it's in a great place at the moment.
Tell me more about the charity. Just anyone watching, listening that doesn't know what you're doing.
Yes, the charity is called Millimeters to Mountains, and we help young adults overcome trauma by using the outdoors and adventure. And that trauma can be physical or psychological. And we've also set up a network of walking groups across the country called Together Outdoors, where people who are either going through trauma themselves or are the support network of those going through trauma can just get together for walks. So it's using the outdoors as a healing tool for mental health.
Really. I love that. There must have been, from a journey point of view to where you are now, which is looking super healthy and bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, if you like. If you could go back to the morning of the accident and not have the outcome of what happened to you and be living a life that, as far as you're concerned at that point, would be normal, would you change it?
No, definitely not.
How long did it take you to get to probably answering that?
So the caveat to that is, obviously, if I could keep all of the things I'm doing now and the growth in terms of what I understand and how I approach life and the gratitude and the perspective, obviously I would take away the fact that I don't have to wear a bladder bag and I don't have spasms at night and things like that. However, obviously that's not life. You either get the whole package or not. And it's not even close, now. I think after probably about 2 years, once the charity started and I started to really see an impact of what we were doing on other people's lives, I actually said to myself on the top of Snowdon, if enough good can come from this situation for other people, then by definition, I can change it from a bad thing that happened diving in the pool and breaking my neck to a good thing, literally by definition, because enough more good than bad has come from it. And that was the mission we set out on. And I'm pleased to say that that tipping point for me happened probably 6 years ago now.
That's cool, because there must be plenty of people, and particularly that you help within the charity, that really struggle with that. And that, like you say, looking over your shoulder, I'm guilty of certain things that have happened to me, and I'm frustrated with myself about how much I'm looking over my shoulder, and I can't change it.
Yeah.
And that mindset that you have to, it's a discipline, right? You have to work on it and have those conversations with yourself and seek probably people around you and knowledge to be like, right, face forward, renew and refresh your purpose. And one of the things we talked about just earlier was sort of community. You use social media as a force for good. You've built a really loyal tribe of people that love what you put out. That started organically, didn't it? You didn't look at it. I think you started putting stuff out. I remember watching a podcast and reading about you prior to today, and you were just starting to share how you're feeling, again, being vulnerable. And then that drew people to you, because I think so many people are inauthentic on social media and trying to be something they're not.
Yeah.
You just put out how you were feeling, how you were struggling. That's built your community. How much do you value that?
yes, I mean, it's massively important. It was really hard to do for me in the early stages because I was keeping voice notes when I was in hospital to help me get to sleep, which were private. Then I woke up one afternoon and my friend was reading them all. And he was like, you should make some of these public because it might help someone one day. And I was like, absolutely no way, because I was still in old rugby player head mode, don't show any vulnerability. Then my wife got involved, and then I had to do it. And then I realised how beneficial it was. You know,
So
it
you
was an
physically
offload.
saw the change as you put it out.
Yeah, and it was like at the start, it wasn't there. It was there to help others, I thought, but actually, all of a sudden, I'm getting these messages from people
Self-therapy.
who become my support network, and I felt the benefit myself of sharing, being open and honest, and it's something I continue to do. And there's never anything disingenuous I put on social media. I try and share when I'm struggling or when it's going well. And I think you're right. A lot of people do end up creating that divide because they'll find a bit of attention for something that they've done and then they'll chase it. And I think that's dangerous because you'll end up creating a chasm between who you genuinely are and who your social media profile is. I'm quite happy to say that mine's one and the same. So I do really value the support network. I've got some amazing people that follow, and they also come to real life events as well. That's the amazing thing because of the charity and the walks we run. You get to meet a lot of these people too. So I'm very grateful for it. And it also does keep the pressure on to keep doing it. Like some of these mountains,
it's accountability, right?
I'm halfway up them and I'm like, why am I doing this again? But to motivate myself to do the next one, I'll just announce it and actually start fundraising for it. And then I've got no choice.
Yeah, I thought that. I was going to say there's an accountability about that. It's not just you.
Yeah.
When you started to be able to wiggle your toes, you had that hope. You had an opportunity to believe that you could change the outcome of what the doctor had said. A lot of people at that point would just be happy with probably recovering. When did you start to plan adventures and start going back to the old mindset, coupled with the new mindset of showing that I can now climb a mountain?
That's a good question because I was trying not to think too far ahead for the obvious reasons of getting frustrated, because recovering from something neurological takes years. I mean, I'm still recovering 8 years later. So you don't know when it's going to stop. So you don't want to try and get too ahead of yourself. A wiggling toe might have been all I'd ended up with. So I was just focusing, right, wiggling toe, now try and move my leg, now try and stand in a standing frame bit by bit. I never imagined I'd be hanging off the side of mountains. Like really didn't cross my mind until it gets there. And I think it was actually Snowdon after a year where I was like, okay, let's see how high we can go.
Keep pushing.
Keep pushing. And I think it's important to still have those goals, but try and keep them. I think it really should stay aspirational and then keep them as dreams, which is hard because if you get too fixated on a goal, you know, if you get there, you're like, great. But then if you don't get there, it's a bit demoralizing.
And I think it's probably a good thing to kind of wrap our conversation up with, if you like, is that, you know, if you, with all this experience and perspective you've got now, and the charity set up to help people with trauma and so on, is there one piece of advice, is there one thing you'd say to someone if they just suffered an accident, had something happen to them where they're in that crisis period and they could be feeling, you know, really down, really lost, life shattered? What can you say to them?
It's going to be okay. I think the pendulum always swings. I love that saying. And as long as you don't give up at the back end of the swing, just time will bring it back through. And if you've got to make me say one thing to them, that's what I'd say. Obviously, there's lots of other things I would say, like speak to people, take your time. It's okay to be feeling like this. But I think the most important thing is to realize that it's going to be okay, because in those moments, it feels like the world's ended. It literally feels like there's no hope and you might as well give up. But it will come back.
Well, I've been looking forward to this chat. I already knew you were an inspiration, but it's been such an inspirational conversation. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.